camera.
So once again, another testimonial. I've got my lovely client Nick here, and Nick's just going to share a little bit about his story and introduce himself, and just really go through his experience at Level One coaching and his success so far. He's a Hall of Famer in terms of results. He's got a body that's competing with mine now. So
Not quite,
Nick,
not
if you
quite,
could,
but
we're almost there. But if you could introduce yourself, sort of name, age, occupation, and we can
yeah,
get right into it.
yeah, sure. So my name's Nick Barnes. I live in the UK, in the northwest of the UK, in Cumbria, even though I'm from nearer London originally. Yeah, 49 years old. Got a sort of professional job. I was director for a graphics company based in the northwest. So very much an office and travel job. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Cool. And if you could explain to the viewers how you essentially what life was like from a fitness standpoint 6 months ago now.
Yeah, sure. And I think for me, my journey sort of is possibly a little bit different to some other people in that actually it wasn't so until I was like mid 30s, I was quite overweight, and I went through a bit of a transformation about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and lost quite a lot of weight. But I did it mainly with cardio. But then what had happened was that while I'd kept it off over the last few years, sort of got into sort of 46, 47, 48, I was starting to put a little bit of weight back on. I think just because of probably lifestyle, um, but also a little bit of lack of motivation because I'd experimented with doing weights because even though I was not overweight on the face of it. I was never happy with how I really looked. I wasn't happy with my proportions, and I really didn't have a lot of muscle, or I certainly didn't feel like I did. Over the last sort of 18 months, I've been trying to do weights. I'd sort of got a home setup and just wasn't making really any progress. So I think for me, motivation wasn't a challenge, but it was more just knowing what the hell to do, and just having a level of understanding and expertise. And I think another piece for me is because I'm vegan. I follow a plant-based diet. I was very aware around protein and the right type of macros, and am I eating the right thing as well? Because that whole piece around diet and exercise together, I think, is really key. So for me, it was a case of right. I'd got to 49 at Christmas, and I thought I want to do something special this year, and I want to do something. I want to make a step change in my fitness, but in my physique as well. It wasn't about getting massive, but it was just around feeling good, looking good. I've got two teenage boys who are really into fitness, and I wanted a dad that they'd be proud of from a sort of physique, but not just from a physique, from a sort of fitness level as well. And I didn't want to sort of slip into that middle age spread. So yeah, I reached out to Asha.
And Nick, I remember fairly well when we were having a conversation.
Yeah,
It wasn't an easy decision for you. I don't know if you remember, but you were on the fence. You were a bit unsure, if that's fair to say, about going forward. If you could talk us through kind of that process and then why you decided to take the leap of faith.
yeah, sure. And I think there's always a piece when you because actually I saw some content that you'd put on LinkedIn. I was really impressed with it. But I think typically with this type of thing, quite often it would be a recommendation or someone personally would say, look, you need to work with this person. So it felt a little bit uncomfortable. Wow, I'm reaching out to someone who lives in Dubai who I've never met before. Are they a real person? Clearly they are. Clearly you are, mate. So
Yeah.
I guess it was first that leap of faith, just getting my head around that. I think it was getting my head around the idea of like, well, what does an online PT look like, and what are the benefits of that? So I think it took a little bit of time for me to get my head round, but actually, I think what was really key was us spending some time together. We had a couple of calls, didn't we, where we chatted about my goals, and I felt that we really clicked, and I really resonated with sort of your values as well. What was important to you. It wasn't just about short term quick wins. It was about making lifestyle changes. It was about doing something that wasn't just about how you looked. It was about how you felt. It was the whole piece. I think that you're a family guy as well. I think there's the family values, all that sort of stuff's important to you, and I felt we resonated. And actually, yes, of course, it was an investment, and it has been an investment. But it didn't take a lot of me to really twig through that. Actually, in the grand scheme of things, this is an investment in me, in my future, in sort of creating that step change in my physique, but also my fitness and my health and my diet. That's going to increase my health span for years, and have a massive impact. So yeah, it's been massively impactful for me. And yeah, it took a bit of getting my head round. Um, and I guess I wanted to qualify it properly and make sure that I was comfortable, because if I was going to jump in, I wanted to be all in. I didn't want to go in and be like half baked with it. But actually, I think the thing that really impressed me was the fact that you were asking for as much commitment from me. And actually, I think what was clear was that you weren't just after quick wins either. And you were very much like, look, I only want to work with people who are committed. I want to work with people who are up for this. And there's no point lying on your stats, because we're just kidding ourselves, right? And I really like that. I really like that, because it's like it means something to you as well as me. It's not just it's about who you partner with, and you need to feel it. And I remember me saying to you, commitment's not going to be an issue, because I'm a very disciplined, committed person. I hold myself accountable. Whether it's work, other forms of personal development, but deep down, I also appreciate what I know and what my expertise is and what it's not, and ultimately, I think understanding what your strengths are, but then being prepared to invest in getting expertise to help you on other things, I think is really, really important. Because yeah, I could have probably read a book, but yeah, would that really have had the same impact? No, it wouldn't. It would have been a complete waste of time. It's about investing in yourself, but investing in an expert who can guide you. Because for me, it was about just not knowing what to do. I'd tried. I'd never really made it a step change in my fitness, in my physique, and clearly I have, right, in the last 6 months. I mean, it's been a game changer, mate, and I've loved it.
Yeah, and I've flashed on some pictures on the screen of Nick's transformation, and it's, as I say, it's rather impressive. He wasn't lying when he said he was an all-in person at the beginning, and he has been extremely committed. And Nick's an example of someone who comes in and gives everything is 100%, which I saw from our first conversation. So I was keen to get him on board, because I know what that type of character, the all-in type of character, I know what's possible.
Yeah,
And now we're at a point where you're 49, you've got a six pack, you just came back from a holiday with your sons. But like, your sons are also in actually very good shape as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like, you guys are like a pretty solid family, a very fit family now. So
yeah.
very, very impressed by by.
Cheers, mate. Well, it's been a partnership, hasn't it? But of course, it's not the end, And I think for me, this is what's key now. We're obviously working together on like a next phase of a journey, but this is about the rest of my life, right? This is about, for me, this year's about building those foundations, locking them in. But I think what I've really liked about your attitude is that it's not about quick wins. Again, it's about sustainable. It's about a program. It's about following a process. And I've had a few not wobbles, but at times there are a few times when I've found this is a bit challenging with some of like the with little points in some of the food journey, but by and large it's been pretty straightforward. It's not like hasn't been that difficult. I've genuinely loved it, to be honest. I've really, really enjoyed it. And actually, I think because I am quite a disciplined person anyway, I like that. It gives me structure. I go out to the gym, I know what I'm doing. I've got guidance around my diet. Still got flexibility within a framework, which I think works for me. But the fact, because I think what we did, we went through the plan of sort of chucking macros, didn't we? Which then gives me the freedom to have a flexible diet within a framework, which actually works really well. If I've got something going on in the evening with work, I manage my breakfast and my lunch differently. So it's really allowed me, because of my lifestyle, because I've got a busy job, busy life. I think that the way we've worked, yeah, it's been a framework, which I think you talk about, but that's really worked for me, because I've been able to weave that into my life. I'm not going to lie, of course, it's taken some planning, but that's actually probably more because I'm vegan. Because actually, I think getting enough protein, when you're vegan, has taken planning, and particularly if you're out for the day with work and things. But it's all good. And do you know what? I feel fantastic. You know, I know you mentioned the 6 pack, which is great. And you told me I could get one, and I thought you were lying, but you're not. But but actually, it's as much as that. It's the energy levels. You know, it's like I feel completely different than I did a year ago. You know, I feel I've got more energy. I feel better. You know, I'm eating my diet. This has given me the impetus to completely optimize my food intake, and that realization of how food and exercise together just create this sort of such a powerful recipe. It's been really good.
And Nick, now you're going into your next chapter will be 50, right?
Yeah,
How do you feel now? Because funny enough, a lot of people come to me, they're either turning 40 or turning 50. It's like a eureka moment for a lot of people in terms of
yeah,
reflecting on their fitness and where they want to be. So now going into your 50s, how do you feel going into your 50s with a six pack?
yeah. I feel awesome. I feel great, and I think we've talked about this, that you know I'm probably harder on my physique than anyone else would be. I'll still look at like one tiny bit of body fat now and be like, oh man, but actually when you take a step back and you catch yourself in the mirror or you see a photograph and I'm like, oh, bloody hell, that's me. So no, I feel great. But actually again, you know, other than the fact that other than the fact that it's the aesthetics, and it's not just without a shirt either, because when you've got that nice physique, clothes look good, you feel good, you know, your posture's better, you know. So it's not just about the beach body; it's about how you walk, how you stand, my self confidence levels. You know, you can even wear like a cheap and cheerful polo shirt, and it looks good on you, right? You know, when you've got a good physique. But it's also how I feel, and I think that feeling of you feel stronger, which I think feels good. But then I think combined with sort of balancing those macronutrients and getting the right diversity of food, which you've also helped me with, I think has been really powerful. And then going into fitness, I think it's just about sustaining it, but in a manageable way and keeping moving it forward. You know, but recognizing that I'm not a spring chicken. You know, you do have to think slightly differently about training when you're 50 than when you're 20. You know, it takes a bit longer to recover than my teenage kids. So I have to manage that as well. And of course, in my head, I'm not 50. In my head, I'm still 20. So that's something that's something that I have to bear in mind because I can be very hard on myself.
Yeah, to be fair, we could probably slow down on the Superman press ups. Probably probably a
Yeah,
step too far.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, but I proved I could do them. I sent you a video anyway.
Yeah, I was very impressed to be fair. I was very impressed with you.
Yeah,
Now shut that down at 50. No, very, very impressed with your progress. Probably last question from me is, what impact do you feel like it's made on your family? I remember one of the first goals was being an inspiration to your sons specifically, but also just your overall family as well and the people around you. What sort of impact do you feel like it's made on them?
yeah. I think it's been really, really positive. So certainly since I made that initial shift, sort of 12, 13 years ago, you know, we've generally been a healthy family. But don't get me wrong, Chantel, my wife, and I, I think we're confident that the kids have sort of grown up in a healthy environment. But I think what this year's done, and actually, you know, both of my kids have individually said they're mega proud of me, and you know they literally look that they're beaming and they said, you know, they've said, Dad, you know, we're so proud of what you've done. And I think that means so much, you know. And so I think that's from a sort of I think setting that benchmark of that being a strong role model for your kids is really key. When let's be honest, a lot of people my age, they're probably not setting the right role model for their kids because they're, you know, overweight, they're lethargic, you know, they're not getting out of bed in the morning to hit the gym, you know, they're lounging in bed till mid-morning, whatever. So I think certainly that. I think the other piece for me that's been massive is the knowledge that I've gained through working with you and the insight and the because it gives you a passion to understand more about the science. And I think, you know, I'm always asking you lots of questions on, what about this and what about that, and that's helped me like relay positive messages to my kids. You know, particularly my youngest, who's also vegan. So you know, his diet has transformed this year because as I've understood more about getting the right balance of protein and carbs and fats and you know and eating wholesome healthy foods, which is it's surprisingly difficult as a vegan because there's a lot of crap, to be honest. um,
Yeah, a lot of processed
so
food. Yeah.
so actually his diet has transformed, and he's really, this is my lad who's 16. So, I've seen a real shift in his energy levels. He's really got into going to weights and going to the gym. My eldest is, proper built. He's sort of 17, 18. I think he's told me it's sort of given him inspiration to keep spurring on, and to keep pushing. So it's great. And, it's important to note my wife as well. My wife is also fit, healthy. She works out regularly. So between us, I like to think that we provide the right sort of benchmark and role modeling for the family. But this has been really impactful for it as well. It's kicked it on another level, and it's been brilliant. I've thoroughly loved it, and I continue to love it as well. To be honest, it's brilliant.
Amazing, and I'm glad to hear it. And I think for myself, one of the most amazing things is the relationship that we built as well over
Honestly,
time.
yeah.
Even there's times, even for myself as a coach, sometimes if I'm not feeling so positive, Nick's there with a very positive attitude at all times. As much as I'd like to think I've been a benefit to you, the feeling's mutual, and I've really
Thanks,
thoroughly
mate.
enjoyed working together. And we've now extended for a little bit longer. Excited
Yeah,
for the next part of the journey, and obviously we've got some things to work out on that side. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. So I guess as a closing statement, what would
yeah.
you say to someone who is on the fence, just like you were just over 6 months ago now, and is thinking about it, but they're just unsure, or again, just that commitment to their own health and fitness journey is quite tough. So, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to look inward and think about why you're doing it and why you're thinking about doing it. Because if you're just doing it because you want to get a six pack, or you want a quick win, or you just want to lose a couple of pounds after Christmas. But for me, you won't get the most out of any fitness journey. So I think the first key thing is about being clear about why you're looking to make that shift, and because I think that helps you really think about whether you've got that impetus and commitment, because it isn't a 1 week journey. Yeah, don't get me wrong, you start to see results quickly. You absolutely do, don't you? But it's best. It's like a lot of things, It's like it's step by step, and you just follow a process. So it takes patience and it takes a level of discipline. But I think providing that as a person, someone's thinking that that's what they want to do, I just say, in all honesty, and I'm not being paid for this, am I, Asha? Go for it, because
Unfortunately,
no, and I've said to you, I would gladly. I'll talk to anyone who sort of is on the fence or says, should I work with Asha? I think you are an expert in your field. You know exactly what you're doing. The fact that we live thousands of miles away from each other doesn't feel like it. We generally have a quick video connection, like we live, at the right level of interaction, don't we? But we'll check in, lots of little questions, particularly in the early days.
yeah, yeah.
No question's a silly question. I think what I've really liked is, you can have that level of vulnerability, and just, that there's no ego with you, mate. You're just, you're genuinely, and you're a really nice guy, and you're passionate about what you do. This is more than a job for you. This is a mission for you, and this is about your passion and what gets you out of bed in the morning, helping other people, and that's inspirational. And I've bought into you as a brand, if you know what I mean, as well as this. I bought into because you want to work with people who are like you as well, who've got a lot of passion, and I think that's why we get on. And my plan, I'm on holiday in Dubai at the end of September, so we're gonna come and have a sparkling water. I'm gonna come and have a sparkling mineral water, and maybe a beer, but I've heard they're expensive in Dubai.
Yeah, stay maybe just the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
All right, so man, Nick, well, appreciate the kind words. It means a lot to me, so thank you very much. And
my
for
pleasure.
anyone who is listening and who's on the fence thinking about it, if you haven't had a conversation, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place to catch me. We can just have a chat, see if it's a good fit for you. And Nick, once again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing to smash it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great stuff. Thank you.
All right, solid.